for having me here today. We're going to talk a little bit about bees and how those natural systems that emerge by themselves actually keep us together as society as well. So I want to start with my grandfather. When I was a small kid, I used to spend my summers in the countryside, like helping out with the garden, with the house. But most importantly, the memory I treasure is helping out my grandfather keep his bees. And the reason for this was I was about this big, like 10 years of age. And this was the only time the grumpy old man was smiling. So everybody was happy with him keeping bees, because he was kind of the guy, like, he reads a lot, he likes to argue for the sake of argument. You know the type, right? It's probably he wasn't very good with girls when he was little as well, but he was happy when he kept bees. And I was happy to be witnessing that. I was very happy to know that there's something that's augmenting his personality. And then, of course, I asked, so, Grandpa, why do you keep the bees? Is it because they make you happy? And he gave me like the weirdest answer. He said, no, I just have to. What do you mean you have to keep bees? It's like a cow, right? If you have a cow, you drink milk. If you have bees, you have honey. So if you don't have the bees, probably you get the honey from the supermarket. And he just looked down on me and said, "Phew, unfortunately, you're going to understand another thing about life from bees. People are greedy." So I was this big. I couldn't comprehend what he's saying. I had no idea why he's trying to make this reference between people and bees and common goods. So fast forward 10 years, I never had the chance to discuss this with my grandfather. But the thing is, I kept bees by myself. And one day, I was at my apiary, and I saw tens of thousands of dead bees everywhere. Of course, it was devastating for me. Not because of the labor that I put in, not because those are creatures that I cared about, but mostly because I knew exactly what caused this. I was absolutely sure why and who killed my bees. It was a farmer. We were talking with the farmer about 1 week before that, because normally when you have apples or pears or other orchards, when they flower, when they blossom, you need to spray them with pesticides. That's the convenient way. It's very easy to do it, like get rid of all the insects. So I went there and asked, what kind of pesticides are you going to be using this year? The guy said, what I feared the most is going to be neonics. It's neonicotinoids. It's a type of pesticide, a general class that is essentially killing all kind of insects. And bees, being insects, are also being eradicated by it. So I begged him not to do this, but the answer I got from the farmer was so ignorant that it completely shut the door to any discussions. He said, so keep your bees over there, I'm gonna keep my apples over here, and do whatever. I mean, this is my business, this is your business. So he had no idea. In his head, there's no place to comprehend that bees are there to pollinate his apples, and without the bees, he has no production this year. So what could I do? I was super frustrated, but not at this particular beekeeper, but because we didn't know. Nobody knew how this works. So throughout my talk, I'm going to try to deliver a few key messages, something to take home, probably tell your loved ones and spread the word a little bit, because the bees really need your help right now. So I'm going to start with a little story here about how exactly pollination happens. So you see, when you have a little bee, it has those little furry like hairs on the whole body, and when it moves through the air, it gets polarized. And then you have the earth and the trees, those are negatively charged, and the bees get positively charged. And this is not a mantra, this is not something that I just came up with, it's a scientific fact. So when the bee goes to a flower and it lands on it, the pollen is actually going to stick to the bee. But the bee is not there for the pollen. Granted, it is a good source of protein, but the bees, the most important source of nutrition for the bees, is the carbohydrates, the nectar that is in the flower. Here's the fascinating thing. They don't actually need to have this nectar there. It's just the way nature works. It offers some food here for this particular bee to come and feed itself, to bring back to the hive. But it's also going to pollinate. So this is the simplest economy. Like, this is a service that I need. I'm going to offer you some food. And if you come and do this, everybody's going to be happy. So the bee goes there, it touches the flower, it touched the flower before that, and this is exactly how it exchanges pollen. And even more fascinating, after the time the tree has been pollinated, this particular blossom has been pollinated, it's going to suck back the nectar to devote it to some other blossom. This is the intricacy, the level of intricacy with which nature operates. But the thing is, people are not the same. We actually mess up a lot of stuff and then try to, cure them and save them, and we're constantly saving the world in one or other direction, but mostly we created the problems as well. So my idea was, let's understand bees. There is sufficient technology, there is sensor technology that we could put inside the beehives so that we can get enough information so that we understand the problem. Now, I'm an engineer. I start with understanding the problem before providing a solution. And for me, the only way to really understand what's going on with the bees is to get a lot of data, because it's so complex issue that it's never the same in different geographies. But before that, I knew that if I'm going to be successful in helping the bees everywhere around the world, it's not just technology. It's also the means of putting this technology into the hands of the people who need it. In this instance, the beekeepers. So I was starting to search, what is an organization? What is a place which can teach me about that? And to follow on Rita's talk about Singularity University, this is where I found this organization. So these people are committed to identifying young entrepreneurs, policymakers, and inventors who are able to positively impact the life of at least 1 billion people. So in this place you can play around. It's in NASA. Sorry for the bad picture, but not very great pictures of NASA these days. It's inside the Silicon Valley, and it's probably the perfect place to connect with other people that are crazy enough that they can think to change the world. So you play around, you prototype in those great facilities, you play around with rockets even, you get to use some thermal cameras, and it's a lot of fun. But also, they give you the confidence that you, with your stupid little idea about some sensors in a box, is actually changing the world. So playing around with all those gadgets led me to think that technology really is the answer to most of our questions, and policy is a great barrier. But let's talk about why the bees are actually so important to us, why we decided to build this intelligent technology for just beekeepers. Bee fact number 2. 30% of all the food that you put on your tables every day directly relies on the pollination of the bees. That's 30% of all your food. Indirectly, it's about 70% because they actually pollinate the food for our cattle, the cows and the pigs. So with no bees, our food security is dwindling. And probably you heard the citation by some people attributed to Albert Einstein. If the bees go, we have no more than 4 years to live, we as a humanity. So we went in to research the issue. Turns out that in the US, this very, very advanced place, they're losing 44% of this very important pollinator. That's 44% per year of one of the most important reproductive mechanisms of nature. With that, the price of foods go up, of course. But most importantly, we don't think about that. We don't really think about what we are doing to nature when we spray the pesticides and the fungicides. We don't really think about it when we start to grow apples, because growing apples is it's a good business, but when you start developing it as a business, it just makes sense that you have acres and acres and acres of apples. But when you have that, those apples are gonna flower for just 2 weeks. The bees are not gonna get enough food from that, and for this reason, where you have apples today, you don't have bees, which is ridiculous. And it actually changed the beekeeping sector from this, a nice little apiary in the backyard, 50 beehives creating honey, to this. It's a businessman with a fleet of trucks and thousands of beehives that are being transported from one place to another to offer the service of pollination on demand to farmers. Just think about this. The trees and the bees and the way they interact with each other. And we broke that. We built a wall between that. And now we are fixing it this way by introducing trucks there with thousands of beehives. And you know what? It's a new thing. It's new for the bees. The bees have no idea what to do with this new information. Like they wake up 300 kilometers away, and it's not what they were intended to do. But also for the beekeepers, it's a new business model. They have no idea how to take care of those bees. And for this reason, they're losing almost half of them. And the scary part is that excerpt of 44% of the bees in the US gone, it's a very nice little picture of our future here in Europe as well, and for the whole world, because the trend is not going to get reversed, it's just growing. So we decided it is time to introduce the technology, but what is a way to introduce the technology so that we can actually get to all the people? We decided to top up on that ignorance of the humans. Let's create a device that optimizes the business, that saves you some money, optimizes your production, so that we can start getting information from the bees, but also deliver something to the beekeepers so they would like to have intelligent technology there. And we decided to create the Internet of Bees. We see it as an integrated system, a smart grid of nature, using the bees as sensors. And the dream is to really have the bees working and talking to us, literally talking to us with vibrations. But we start with something very simple. It's a productivity enhancer. So we have sensors that monitor vital parameters to a honeybee colony. We analyze this information and we put it in the hands of the beekeeper as actionable notifications of what to do, where, and when. We created a number of proprietary devices to serve this purpose, and we are actually trying to start selling them right now. And using this technology, we cut the work of the beekeepers. They don't need to do the manual checkups. They don't need to have a lot of people to be transporting beehives from one place to another. They just observe, they know what the problem is, and they know how to mitigate it. So this is the way for us to try and digitize the beekeeping industry. So it started with those two guys. Funny enough, we do think we can change the world, and we are that crazy. My co-founder Ivan is the business guy in the project, and it's very, very necessary to cover the expertise of all the things that you're delivering to the customers within the founding team. Together we thought about the idea of let's provide some value to the beekeepers so that we can have something to step on in understanding the bees and understanding those intricate problems that they have. So today we are developing the product into a final stage. We tested it out in Europe and US. The feedback from the beekeepers was very good. So right now we are trying to put it in the hands of the beekeepers by the end of the year so that from next year we can start really helping out. So bee fact number 3 is related with the social environment inside a beehive. The difference between people and bees is that the people are a top-down system. We're used to have a boss, a king, a mayor, or whatever. There's somebody giving orders, and there's the people there that just work. With the bees, it's entirely different. They don't have a boss. A whole beehive, a whole bee colony should be looked at as a superorganism where nobody has a particular responsibility, but everybody does exactly what is needed in order to sustain the colony. So with the bees, they're a natural system. Their purpose in life is to reproduce and spread their genes. But what I want to ask you today is, what's your purpose? And what is the thing that you have to do? Because I think that the only way to be sustainably happy is to be of use to others. Köszönöm.